But I'm going to turn something around altogether. You've probably heard the philosophical moral argument, right? The morals only come from God. People believe there are morals, therefore God must exist, because where else would morals come from? Well, let's look at history. History actually refutes this. Let's treat atheism and theism as two different theories here. Atheism, as a theory, predicts that moral rules will only come from human beings, they will begin deeply flawed, and will be improved by experiment over thousands of years. Note, that is exactly what we observe. Slavery is just one example of many things where the moral rules were created by humans. They were deeply flawed, completely fucked up, one would say, and were improved gradually, very painfully, slowly by experiment over thousands of years. Therefore, atheism is vindicated by the historical record. Theism, as a theory, however, predicts a universe directly governed morally right from the start. In other words, the correct moral laws are disseminated immediately from the beginning. It would have been 40,000 BC, not 800 BC. But we would also possibly see the universe actually designed to be moral. We would have justice laws, stewardship of the world, enacting justice and mercy on God through God. We see none of these things. All of the things you would expect from a moral engineer are not there. But we observe no such laws built into the universe, no stewards or law enforcers but us ever. So the theistic theory is completely refuted. Its predictions for history do not come true. It's falsified by history itself. Whereas the predictions of atheism are completely verified. So the moral argument goes the other way around. So that's for morals. Now I'm going to talk about things, whether they're moral or not, but they still involve moral concern. Yeah, what ought you do after you wipe your butt? You wash your hands, right? Okay. Everybody knows this, except Jesus, by the way. In Mark 7, Jesus comments on the Jewish tradition at the time of washing your hands and washing your utensils before you use them for meals and washing your hands before you eat. And Jesus says, this is a human tradition. It's not in the Torah. God did not command it. Therefore, you don't have to do it. You do not have to follow this rule. He says that things that go into your mouth can't harm you. Only things that come out of your mouth are evil. And meaning words, of course, but and blasphemies. But the point being is that he clearly did not know about germs, right? This was the best teaching moment in the history of the human race, where if you're a divine being, the one thing you know, if you stumbled across a TARDIS and were able to teleport, in time back to here, and people mistook you for a god and were listening to you, what was one of the first things you'd tell them about is germs, right? Because there's millions of people, kids, women, men, are dying and suffering in horrible ways because they don't know about germs. And simple things, simple hygiene, just cleaning your hands could save countless lives. And you have this guy, Jesus, who's portrayed as going around randomly healing this or that individual isolated person, but doesn't do anything like cholera, done, gone. If it was a god, you could eliminate cholera as easily as laying on hands on the earth, right? Just no more cholera, done. That would be how a god would do it. He wouldn't walk around town like a Benny Hinn clone trying to do faith healing acts. But the key thing here is that if Jesus was God or had any pipeline to God, surely he would know about germs and would teach and say, by the way, that is a tradition of men, but it's a really good one. It'll save lots of lives. In fact, you should do this more. And you should sterilize your instruments if you're going to engage in surgery. There's all kinds of things that you should know about. And by the way, water should be potable. You should make sure it doesn't have germs in it and so on and so forth. And clean your hands after you wipe your butt. But instead, Jesus seems to act like diseases are caused by demons inhabiting a person. In other words, he acts like the same primitive mindset of the time. So here we have conclusive evidence just in the Gospels themselves. Even if you treat them as literal books, Jesus is not God, because God would know about germs. So clearly God has not been talking to anyone. For all of these, this is just examples after example after example. There are many more, one could go on. So history proves God's not been talking. Islam's no different. I'll briefly just say that the Quran also fails to mention germs, incidentally. So when the angel Gabriel was rambling on and on and on with these surahs to Muhammad, you'd think by the end Muhammad would be pissed off that Gabriel didn't at any time mention germs. That would have been really helpful information. By the way, also so would the printing press and a few other things. The Quran also endorses slavery, including sex slavery, which of course the Old Testament also does. And therefore the angel Gabriel thought slavery was really cool. Keep up with that. Like Judaism, God's promise of prosperity and superiority over all nations was also refuted by the opposite. Almost all Islamic nations are failed states or economic disasters compared to much of the quote-unquote infidel West, which has all the power and wealth. Now, that doesn't indicate that we're morally better than them, but it does indicate that if we're going to talk about God's helping us out, it looks like our God's doing a better job than theirs. But I want to point out that all of these religions are the same religion. In fact, Christianity and Islam are just Jewish sects. They're all just different sects of the same one religion. They're all resurrection cults because they all teach basically the same thing and just differ on the details. Judaism says the world will one day be dissolved, the dead will be raised, and the loyal will become immortal. Christianity says the world will be dissolved, the dead will be raised, and the loyal become immortal. Islam says the world will be dissolved, and the dead will be raised, and the loyal become immortal. It's all the same religion.